Mammalean and Cush continued north on Highway 65 for half a mile before Mammalean shouted, "Oh Lord, I forgot that quick." Grabbing an instrument and placing it in her ear, she tapped it a few times, and seconds later, it beeped. "Valley, Valley, you there?" Valley replied, "Yes, Kakahoya, go ahead." Mammalean replied, "This Mississippi thing is getting worse. Take all the meats from McCall that are already packaged and get them ready to go to all my locations along Highway 17. Don't. Repeat, do not go past Highway 4. Whatever you have ready, start sending them out first thing in the morning. Start at Lake Village on one end and start at Waterproof on the other." Valley came back on the radio saying, "There are men here asking." Mammalean interrupted, "Give them whatever they need. I'll try to get back before nightfall. I got to take care of my business in Lake Province before I head back." Valley replied, "Over and out." Cush looked at Mammalean in amusement and pride. "You got electronic devices too?" Mammalean said, "Some of us do, and some of us don't. I rarely use mine, but I keep them handy, like in situations like this. If I hadn't had it, they would have to have waited until I got back, or I would have had to turn around, but this is important that I have to do, to me anyways." Mammalean grabs the reins, slaps against the horses' backs, and shouts, "Giddy up!" Ha! Racing down the highway, they rushed toward Lake Providence. They arrived at Cane Ridge Road until its dead end and walked through a wooded area about a quarter of a mile to a small house, just north of Round Lake, Donatella. Mammalean shouted, "Kakahoya? Baby, I was about to shoot you. What are you doing out here in all this confusion? Who's that you got there with ya?" It was Mammalean's sister-in-law, Papa Joe's sister. "It's Cush, baby, and your eyes are gone too. Where are your spectacles?" Mammalean said. "Cush. I ain't seen him since that boy was a baby. Come here, child, let your great-aunt take a look at ya." Cush walked up to Donatella. "Hello? How are you?" Mammalean politely interrupted, "Baby, I meant to stay for a spell, but they done got this thing going on, and I got to rush back home. Tell your grandchildren to help unload the wagon so we can get back home." Donatella shouted, "Bella, Drew, y'all go get the rest of y'all, and get the stuff off Auntie Lean's wagon." 13 children bolted out the door, rushing past Mammalean. "Hey, Auntie Lean," they said as they passed her. Mammalean shouted as they all vanished into the woods, "All that stuff is y'all, so be careful with those eggs." Donatella looked at Mammalean, "Thanks for the food and stuff, we sure enough needed it, y'all come on in. That wagon will be unloaded in 2.3 seconds. We can talk for a spell before you head out." Mammalean looked at Cush and smiled, "Go see your little gal friend and be back within the hour. Here." Mammalean throws Cush an old samurai she had strapped around her back. "You be careful, ya hear?" He rushed to the wagon, and unhitched one of the horses from the wagon. When he reached Highway 596, he felt someone was watching him. The feeling got stronger as he headed south on the road. He stopped the horse and got off. 6 men walked out of the bushes. They were not Wakatilians by their clothing and had on rubber-like outfits, and each had a stitch of their own. Cush looked back and saw 2 more men behind him. He took the samurai from around his neck and gripped the sword tightly as he stood in his stance. At that moment, Yael appeared but took a seat on a nearby log. One of the men tried to grab Cush, but he directed the sword in such a manner it cut the man's hand off. While flipping, he quickly turned, severing the other man's head. As the first man stood there screaming in pain, Cush simultaneously kicked him while slicing his throat just inches from taking off his head. Covered in blood, Cush took the samurai and slashed it in the air as the blood from the 2 men was forced from the blade. "What the fuck is this shit, a child? You mean to tell me a child killed my men like they were ants?" said the man who stood among the other men in front of Cush. He pointed at the other men and shouted, "Kill that motherfucking child. Now." Cush was insulted by the fact the man called him a child. "Child? A child? I am Cush, son of Darwashi, heir to Samel, descendant of a Buxigan, son of Wanyenyekevu of the Tablita clan, and I am a man, not a child, of the almighty Sabaoth. Cush then stood with his feet pressed firmly against the ground as the 4 men ran up to Cush, 2 on each side of him. 1 man from each side tried to pass him so they could surround him, but Cush quickly stopped them. Kicking 1 man in the face, he turned and mule-kicked the other in the groin. The blade from Cush's sword slid through the man's midsection like a knife through butter. The man grabs his intestines as he went into shock, while Cush decapitated the man he kicked in the groin. The other 2 men pulled out some kind of weapon from their person. Cush cut one of the men's hands off, and the other man, he carved out a chunk of his shoulder blade, causing them to drop their weapons. Cush thrust his blade into the man's heart while twisting it in a 180-degree turn, killing him instantly. Killing all the men, the leader who stood in the back rushed Cush. Cush heard an object pass him with great force, and the leader of the men fell dead, before he could reach him. Cush turns and sees Mammalean, who had thrown a star that penetrated the man's skull, dead center between his eyes. I ain't got time for this, shouted Mammalean. It's time to go home and set our men up for battle. They are counting on us. Cush shockingly asked, how did you know? Mammalean said, I felt them. I'm drawn to your light, like a moth to a flame. It is time for your enlightenment. However, true enlightenment is up to you.